Good evening. Council Member Doug Young will lead us in prayer and our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Young.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings and opportunities that you have given us, a country where we may think and speak freely and worship without fear. Be protective of our local heroes, our first responders, as they work to protect us. Be with our servicemen and women around the world as they serve us again. Guide this council, staff, and employees that serve the public and serve you. Make our decisions good and fair. We ask these prayers in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Murfreesboro City Council, April 2nd, 2009. It's a pleasure to have a large group with us tonight. I want to recognize Mr. Hubert McCullough, who's a former State Finance Commissioner, who is with us, and appreciate him being here with us. I think he has something on the agenda, and I want to recognize his service to the state of Tennessee and his high notoriety for our county and our area. Glad to see him here. At this time, council members, you have before you your consent agenda. If you have had an opportunity to review it, if there are any questions or if you're ready for a motion, I'll be ready for you.
If there are no questions, I move for adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. I also have the minutes of the meeting held on March 26. Before you, are there any corrections, deletions, or are you ready for a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes of March 26. Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. This time pursuant to a resolution adopted by the City Council on February 26, 2009, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider annexing approximately 24 acres located north of Joe B. Jackson Parkway and to adopt for the same a plan of services. Joe B. Jackson Parkway Partners, GP, applicant. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the March 15, 2009 issue of the local newspaper. Ms. Ely, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. You have before you a request to annex 24 acres of land located along the north side of Joe B. Jackson Parkway. This 24 acres is taken out of a larger 89-acre tract. If you look at the map, the area shaded fuchsia shows the area requesting annexation. The applicant's representative, Mr. John Jones, has a contract to purchase this property, and it is currently vacant, undeveloped land. The applicant's zoning change request will be the subject of the next public hearing. Because this property doesn't have direct access to any public rights-of-way, Mr. Jones has purchased the property that's located where I'm pointing on the map to give it direct access to Joe B. Jackson Parkway. The plan of services indicates that the City of Murfreesboro will be able to provide city services upon the effective date of annexation. The subject property is contiguous with current city limits along its western and southern lot lines, and it's also within our urban growth boundary. 6 of the 7 Planning Commission members were present when the public hearing was held for this, and they all unanimously recommended that the City Council annex this area. A representative of the applicant is here this evening if you have any questions regarding the annexation. We have scheduled a public hearing to consider the annexation of these 24 acres. If you have any questions regarding it, either before or after the public hearing, I'll be glad to answer them for you.
Any questions for Ms. Ely before we open the public hearing? If not, I'll open the public hearing at this time, and anyone here wishing to speak for or against this annexation of 24 acres, please step to the microphone, give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing on the annexation request, and we'll consider for passage on first reading an ordinance to annex an area located north of Joe B. Jackson Parkway and to adopt for the same a plan of services.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. This time pursuant to a resolution adopted by the City Council on February 26, 2009, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider zoning approximately 24 acres located north of Joe B. Jackson Parkway as light industrial LI district simultaneous with annexation. Joe B. Jackson Parkway Partners, GP, is the applicant. Notice of said public hearing was published in the March 15, 2009 issue of the local newspaper.
Thank you again. This public hearing is to consider rezoning or zoning the subject property, which we just considered for annexation in the previous agenda item, LI, Light Industrial District, simultaneous with its annexation. This is the 24 acres that's owned by Joe B. Jackson, or that a contract is pending by Joe B. Jackson Parkway Partners. The applicant's requesting that you zone it LI, Light Industrial District, similar to the zoning that's to the west and to the south. These parcels are also zoned LI, Light Industrial District. To the southeast is property that's zoned PRD, and it's a city single-family subdivision. And then further to the east, property zoned PCD, Plain Commercial District, and that's a development which was approved called Magnolia Village. That's a commercial development which has not begun being developed. The area to the north and to the east is an unincorporated area of Rutherford County. The applicant has stated that his intentions are to develop this property as an industrial park. There are no specific plans as to what he would like to go there, so it would just fall into that bulk zoning category of LI. The Planning Commission did recommend zoning this property LI, Light Industrial District, simultaneous with its annexation the night of its public hearing. The applicant is present tonight and would be available to answer any questions you may have. He doesn't have a presentation, but he is here if you would like to ask him any further questions. Staff is available as well. We should conduct a public hearing to consider this rezoning request, and like always, I'm here to answer any questions you have either before or after the public hearing.
All right, any questions on this on this zoning request from Ms. Ely before I open the public hearing?
Ms. Ely, is this consistent with what's in the adjoining tracts?
It's consistent with what's in the adjoining tracts. To the south is the interstate warehousing or industrial development, Pretoria, and Perfect Equipment. So those are the three contiguous properties to the along the southern lot line, and this property would be getting its access from Joe B. Jackson Parkway. So essentially what the applicant's requesting is to extend that use just to the north in this area of fuchsia.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? If there are no other questions, I'll open the public hearing at this time, and anyone wishing to speak for or against this zoning request, please step to the microphone and give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak for or against the zoning request? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and we'll consider for passage on first reading an ordinance to zone an area located north of Joe B. Jackson Parkway as light industrial LI district simultaneous with the annexation.
Move for its passage. Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by City Council on February 26, 2009, we'll now conduct a public hearing to rezone approximately 20.28 acres from Boxwood Plantation Planned Development south of Salem Pike from a planned unit development PUD district to a single-family residential 15 RS-15 district. Hubert McCullough is the applicant. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the March 15, 2009 issue of a local newspaper.
Thank you again. You have before you an area which the applicant's requesting to remove from the PUD Planned Unit District zoning category. The name of this development is called Boxwood Plantation at Rutherford Leah, and the name of this development is derived from the house that's located in the subject area. The orange area is approximately 20.28 acres, and it's a part of that larger 109.3 acre site. To the east is the United Methodist Church. To the south are developed single-family subdivisions that are located in the city. To the north, property is zoned RS-15, but that's an interim zoning, and staff anticipates that will change in the future to be more consistent with the Salem land use plan. Some multifamily apartments are located to the north, and then to the northwest, the properties are zoned Fringe Commercial District. Spence Creek and its floodway are located along the southern area of the Planned Unit District area. This request is to remove the portion of Boxwood Plantation, Rutherford Leah, planned development, and zone it RS-15, and that would allow single-family residential development and then some other uses, such as churches with a special use permit. The project was zoned PUD in February 2006 with the plan that allows commercial and residential mixed use. The Boxwood Plantation house that's located in the study area currently is zoned PUD, and the types of uses that would be permitted there would be to allow it to be used as a public building, as an office, as a private clubhouse, as a bed and breakfast, or either to remain as a residence. And 50 single-family attached condominium units referred to the villas in the planned development are located in the study area. So if this rezoning request is approved, that the use of this property will change, and it will only be allowed to be used for the single-family purposes, as I stated earlier. There's a concept plan that was submitted by the applicant that subdivides the area into 3 parcels. There are 3 large estate lots, and they front on New Salem Highway. I've included them in your agenda materials just for reference purposes. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend that this property be rezoned from PUD to RS-15. Mr. Hubert McCullough, as you mentioned earlier, is here this evening, and he's the applicant. If you have any questions, he, of course, would be glad to answer them for you. He doesn't have a presentation prepared this evening, and staff is available for any questions you may have regarding this rezoning change. You should conduct a public hearing to consider this item, and it has been properly scheduled.
Any questions for Ms. Ely? Any questions at all before I open the public hearing? If not, I'll open the public hearing at this time, and anyone wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request of 20.28 acres, please step to the microphone and give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak for or against? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and we'll consider for passage on first reading an ordinance to rezone approximately 20.28 acres from Boxwood Plantation Plan Development south of Salem Pike to a single-family residential 15 RS-15 district.
Move to be approved.
Second.
All right, you have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please, Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by City Council on February 26, 2009, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider rezoning approximately .21 acres located along the corner of East Sevier Street and South Highland Avenue from residential multifamily 16 RM16 district to single-family residential 4 RS4 district. Habitat for Humanity is the applicant. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the March 15, 2009 issue of a local newspaper. Ms. Ely?
Thank you again. You have before you a request to rezone 2 parcels of land located on the northeastern corner of Highland Avenue and Sevier Street. This property is currently zoned RM16 and can be used for single-family residential purposes or multifamily residential purposes. The properties to the east, north, and west are also zoned RM16. All the properties along the south side of Sevier Street are zoned RS4. The applicant's requesting to rezone this property from RM16 to RS4, consistent with the properties to the south, so that it will have the ability to subdivide these 2 parcels into 2 more equally sized parcels to build 2 Habitat for Humanity houses on this property. I've included in your agenda materials a concept plan which shows the division line running horizontally rather than vertically, the new plan that they would like to submit. As it's currently zoned in RM16, the setback requirements and the minimum lot size and minimum lot requirements will not allow the Habitat for Humanity to be able to situate 2 houses on these lots. If it's zoned RS4, then the lots will be able to meet our minimum standards and won't even need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's what's prompted the request by Habitat for Humanity to rezone this property RS4. Beth Smith is here this evening, and she will be available for any questions you may have. She did not prepare a presentation for this either, but if you have any questions, she'll be able to answer them, as will staff. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this rezoning request from RM16 to RS4 unanimously, and we should conduct a public hearing to consider this rezoning request.
All right, any questions for Ms. Ely before I open the public hearing? If not, I'll open the public hearing at this time. And anyone wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request, please step to the microphone and give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak for or against? If not, then I'll close the public hearing at this time, and we'll consider for passage on first reading an ordinance to rezone an area located on the corner of East Sevier Street and South Highland Avenue to single-family residential for RS4.
Move for passage on first reading.
Second.
All right, you have a motion and second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. I would like to recall some information that was provided to us, which says that Habitat was founded in Rutherford County in 1989, and that 84 homes have been completed and 2 more are currently under construction, 69 homes in Murfreesboro and 15 in the county. And the 100th home estimated completion is the fourth quarter of 2010. So my congratulations to Rutherford County Area Habitat for Humanity and Beth Smith, who is their executive director. And Beth is here with us tonight. Beth, thanks very much. All right, this time, pursuant to a resolution adopted by the City Council on February 26, 2009, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider annexing approximately 35.24 acres located north of DeJarnett Lane, and to adopt for same a plan of services. Rutherford County Schools is the applicant. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the March 15, 2009 issue of a local newspaper. Ms. Ely.
Thank you again. As you can see, we had a busy month in February. You have before you a request to annex property located along the north side of DeJarnett Lane. The study area consists of 3 parcels. 2 of these parcels, annexation was requested by the Rutherford County School Board. The parcel that's shaded orange was included as additional study area by the Planning Commission. We included this parcel as additional study area because we wanted to avoid having the city of Murfreesboro completely surround an unincorporated area of Rutherford County, which sometimes is referred to as an island. In the additional study area, there's 1 single-family home. It's a developed lot. The requested area, which is shaded blue, is vacant, undeveloped land. To the south is Oakland High School. Just to the west is our John Pittard Elementary School, and it's vacant, undeveloped land to the east. This property is contiguous with current city limits along the northern and eastern lot lines, and southern lot line. It's also within the city of Murfreesboro's urban growth boundaries, so it will be relatively easy for us to annex. We did make a condition if Planning Commission or if City Council decides to annex this property that they would be required to extend sewer and stub it to the edge of the property line of the additional study area so that that property will be able to have access to sewer in the future. The Planning Commission did recommend annexation of these 3 parcels unanimously the night of the public hearing. I don't know that there's a representative of the applicant in the audience, but staff is here to answer any questions you may have. And actually, Mr. Adelot has some additional information regarding this area, and he'd like to share that with you now.
All right, welcome, Mr. Adelot.
Thank you, Mayor Bragg, members of the council. The comments I'm going to provide actually apply to both this and the next public hearing that we're going to have regarding the school site on Manchester Highway. The plans of services that you received and that Ms. Ely worked on and that she presented are based upon the expectation that the schools will conform to our standards, the city's requirements, codes, etc. That is basically the foundation for our ability to provide the plan of services. And the information she provided is based upon that explicit expectation. Also, I want to point out that this is a little bit of an unusual situation. Well, it's very, I said unusual, it's a little unusual, but actually it's really common. The motivating factor for the request was for sanitary sewer. And in the case of the property on the DeJarnett Lane here, also for water service. The water service and sewer service can be provided outside the city's sewer customers upon approval by the city council, but because this property is contiguous, we pursued the annexation. Should the council determine two services outside the city customers, the same standards would apply. It's in our city code that if we opt to serve a property as an outside the city sewer customer rather than annex it, it would still have to conform to our standards, albeit through the provisions of our city code, and like any property owner would have to contract with the city to conform to those standards. So I wanted to point these out. I think that's very relevant to the discussion of this annexation tonight. If you have any questions about this, I'm here to answer your questions. So are the other staff members who are in the audience tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Adelite or Ms. Ely? Vice Mayor?
Just give me some bearings on this map to the right of the map. Is that where 96 is, or
Highway 96 is a little bit further off the map.
But it's to the right, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then John Pittard Elementary would be over to the left?
That is correct.
Okay.
The John Pittard Elementary is exactly where the words additional study area is located.
Okay.
And Oakland High School is directly across the street from the site.
And how would we be encircling if we, that was another question. Where would an island be left if we did not annex the additional study area?
If we annex the area that's in blue from the north line to the front, all the way down to DeJarnett Lane, we would cause the area that's orange to become an island, because the north right-of-way line of DeJarnett Lane is the city limits, rather than the south right-of-way line. We annexed that several years ago when we annexed the Oakland High School in order to be able to provide it fire protection and water.
Probably road improvements, too.
And we've just improved that road, is that correct, DeJarnett, all the way?
It's constructed all the way from Highway 96 to Memorial Boulevard as a 5-lane cross-section.
In the city?
Yes, sir. The
Did
city
that
built
work?
that.
I remember that was about $6 million. Is that right, Mr. Traylor, or $5? Yeah.
And a nice road it is.
Very nice. All the citizens were happy from the beginning.
Yeah, very nice.
Except when it was being built. But that is about a $6 million investment. Is that the correct number?
It's probably $1 million, $250,000, better than that one, to get the right-of-way and engineering in. The construction alone was about...
And I believe the state built DeJarnett when Oakland High School was built, wasn't that? Didn't the state pay for that construction?
Yes, sir.
I think I remember that.
We have state right-of-way plans for it.
All right. Any other questions before I open the public hearing? If there are no other questions, I'll open the public hearing at this time, and anyone wishing to speak for or against this annexation request for approximately 35.24 acres north of DeJarnett Lane, please step to the microphone and give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak for or against? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and we'll consider for passage on first reading an ordinance to annex an area located along DeJarnett Lane and to adopt for the same a plan of services.
Mayor, I have a question.
Vice Mayor. Mr. McFarland.
Mayor, we had a pretty detailed timeline that was in our council packet that went all the way back to 2008. How is that playing along with what we're doing now with the city staff going through our engineering? And obviously we have a large site that we're going through, that we have existing homes that are behind that. Do we feel comfortable on our drainage and all the things that we normally would go through a process, or are we having...
Mr. McFarland, at this time, at this particular time, we've not had the occasion that we would with a normal developer to talk through their their site plan, although they have submitted a site plan to us. They did that with the explanation that was out of courtesy, without the expectation that any of the staff comments that might be made would be responded to. That being said, and that's one of the small issues that remain to be resolved, I would ask council to defer action on this request tonight to give the school system an opportunity to work with the city staff so we can resolve some of the current positions and situations, hopefully to the satisfaction that will allow this project to be annexed and built in accordance with normal, typical city rules, requirements, policies, and procedures.
Would this, I know we're going to talk about this later on tonight, but would this would be under our new stormwater ordinance that we passed back, or that became active in October, correct?
That would be one element, yes, sir.
Because I know that in this area that we've dealt with over the last several years, that we do have some, my concern is such a large site that's predominantly going to be asphalt, that we need to make sure that we feel comfortable this is not going to impact areas that we know already in that vicinity that have some flooding issues. That we residents have come and told us that there's some flooding issues in that area. So I would want to feel comfortable that we're not going to cause any problems to people that are in that area already, which I know we went through that when we were discussing Pitter, that was a huge discussion that we had because of the site runoff that we were dealing with already in that area. Because within I would say 600 or 800 feet or a little more than that we do have a lot of floodplain that's over in that site, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Is that the Bushman Creek?
Yes, sir.
Bushman Creek.
And that's just one of several issues that would be considered and addressed in the normal course of action of review and working with a development.
I agree with what Mr. McFarland is saying. We need to make sure, I think it's imperative that we make sure that we have no negative impact on the city residents who live, to the north of this project, and whatever we need to do to make sure that the developer goes through the proper channels to assure us some level of comfortability that we're not going to impact those, and we need to do that.
Mr. Gilley, did you have a question?
I do. Mr. Haley, the issue you raised a second ago of courtesy submittal versus required cooperation and compliance, I assume that issue is going to hold true with the next item on the agenda as well.
Yes, sir.
And that's an issue that regarding past school sites has come up after we've gone through the annexation and approval process and come all the way down to the wire of letting the schools open up before we were able to resolve those issues. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And I assume because of past experience, your request or suggestion of a deferral is so that we're able to resolve those issues on the front end this time, as opposed to the issues coming up on the back end as they have with past school sites. Is that fair to say?
That's correct, sir.
And I think given the prior history and knowing what we know and trying to get things cleaned up from the front end, I would agree with you. And with that, I would move we defer at this time.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. McGann, I understand I think there's no funding for this particular school. Is that your understanding? Or with the county, or I might ask the representatives of the counties, you currently don't have the funding for the two schools. Is that correct?
No, sir. We're taking it back to the council on the 16th, I believe it is.
April 16th.
I mean, back to the commission, yes.
So if we were to defer until they had funding, or if we were, would that Mr. Haley might give me an idea of how much of a holdup that would be, obviously, whether we read it passed it on first or second reading and waited till they had funding or no funding.
Mayor, I don't think deferral would hurt their timeline. The city staff is available 5 days a week. We could start meeting as early as tomorrow to try to resolve these issues, and it certainly is not an attempt on the city's part to hold this project up in any manner. It's just that there are procedures that need to be worked out, and we're ready to move it forward, but it takes two. You got to have two at the table.
And Mayor, I was going to say, my motion to defer anticipates that the deferral being resolved and us revisiting it just as soon as both sides have had a meeting at the mines, as opposed to the issue of courtesy versus obligatory as to the requirements. And in essence, in that situation, the county school system would sort of hold the keys to the door of negotiation in that regard.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it is waiting on a second.
I'll second the motion.
All right, you have a motion to defer and a second. Any other questions or comments on that motion? I think we all understand that we're only deferring until we find out exactly which way the county and the city would like to go on putting this plan together. Any other questions or comments? If not, call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. This time, pursuant to a resolution adopted by City Council on February 26, 2009, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider annexing approximately 91.35 acres located along Manchester Highway and to adopt for the same a plan of services. Rutherford County Schools is the applicant. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the March 15, 2009 issue of the local newspaper. Ms. Ely, welcome again.
Thank you again, Mayor, Council members. I appreciate the opportunity to present these recommendations to you from Planning Commission. The Rutherford County School Board has requested that the city annex property located along the eastern side of Manchester Highway, just east of the intersection of Elam Road and Manchester Highway. The Jones Family Foundation property is located to the north, and as you may recall, that's the PUD. That's approximately 1 square mile, and it's a mixed-use center. To the east, south, and west is the unincorporated area of Rutherford County. The study area is 91.35 acres, and it currently has one single-family house located on it. The majority of the property is currently being used as agricultural land. The Rutherford County School Board has indicated that they would like to build a middle school on this site this year and possibly a high school at some time in the future. The developer will be responsible for extending water service to this property. As it exists, an 8-inch line is located along Manchester Highway, CUD line, and CUD has indicated that they think that line may be insufficient and that the applicant will need to pull water service from the 20-inch line located along Joby Jackson down to this property, and that will be the responsibility of the developer. Street lighting will not be provided along Manchester Pike until both sides of Manchester are in the city limits. During the Planning Commission public hearing, many of the Planning Commission members had questions about our fire service. If you will recall in the plan of services, it states that although four of the city's fire stations will respond to any call that's made here, because it is more than 5 roadway miles from any fire station, it will not meet the ISO 2 requirements. And many Planning Commission members were concerned that that would affect the overall rating of the entire city of Murfreesboro. I've included in your agenda materials a letter from Chief Honeycutt stating that although he does believe the distance will affect the ISO rating of this property, that will not affect the entire city of Murfreesboro. So I wanted to be sure to have those questions answered for you tonight. The parcel is within the Murfreesboro's urban growth boundary, and it's contiguous with city limits along its northern and western property line. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend annexing this property with the expectation that the applicant will conform to applicable policies and procedures provided by the City of Murfreesboro, as Mr. Ablott stated earlier. If you have any questions either before or after the public hearing, I'd be glad to answer them, and so will Mr. Adelot. We should conduct a public hearing to consider the annexation of this parcel, and there is a representative of the applicant here this evening if you have further questions from him.
Any questions for Ms. Ely? If there are no questions, I'll open the public hearing at this time. If anyone is here wishing to speak for or against this annexation request, please step to the microphone and give us your name and address. Is anyone here wishing to speak for or against? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and we'll consider on first reading an ordinance to annex an area located along Manchester Highway and to adopt for the same a plan of services.
Mayor, as with the last item, I would again move for deferral on this project as well.
We have a motion to defer.
Second.
All right, we have a second to the motion. I'll ask again, any questions? Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. At this time, we'll hear from the Assistant Water and Sewer Director regarding stormwater fee and fund balance review and stormwater program update.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening. The main point of this presentation is to kind of revisit our development of the stormwater fee and also review the current status of the enterprise fund balance, kind of a brief overview of the revenues and expenditures of the stormwater enterprise fund, and we'll briefly touch on the post-construction program of the NPDES, or National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit that we are obligated to fulfill as a Phase 2 city. This next slide is fairly, I believe, familiar to you. It basically shows that as impervious cover, imperviousness being cover, that disallows water from infiltrating into the groundwater or back into the soil. As that imperviousness increases, the stream quality decreases. So we use imperviousness as the basis by which we charge the stormwater fee. What we did, we looked at single-family residential lots, the rooftop, driveway, patio, and if they had sidewalk, and we basically developed the median value, or that's the 50th percentile in the city. We looked at over 20,000 residential lots. This was back in 2004, and in effect, 3,470 square feet is the median value for a residential lot. We charge all let me go back to that. We charge all residential lots a flat fee of $3.25, regardless of size. We treat them all as though they are one customer. The way we deal with non-residential entities is we actually we went in on a case-by-case basis, and we determined the entire imperviousness for the site. This happens to be the Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Operation and Maintenance Facility on Church Street. It has 263,505 square feet of imperviousness. In effect, we divide that number by the 3,470 square feet. For our particular site here, it's equivalent to 76 residential units. ERU, or SFU, standing for single family unit. So that site gets charged $3.25 per month times 76. So quick math, $225, $240 per month, something in that range. We developed in the city of Murfreesboro. The way we developed the customer base is we looked at all the residential and the non-residential parcels. We had approximately 29,000 parcels in the city, but when you applied their imperviousness, divided those parcels' imperviousness by the 3,470 square feet, we in effect had about 62,000 equivalent customers. We compared some adjoining cities who had already established a stormwater utility. We looked at Laverne, City of Franklin, City of Maryville, and we developed a fee that was less than, if you looked at the actual per square foot basis, if you looked at $3.25 divided by the 3,470, that's just under 1/10 of a cent per square foot. I believe all those other entities are over 1/10 of a cent per square foot on their utility fee. Since that time, I know Smyrna has developed a stormwater fee, and Metro Nashville has just recently, I don't think they've started billing that, but they're about to in Metro Nashville. The fund balance, right now we have approximately $278,000 of excess funds. You can kind of see the revenue of $1.49 million. We started assessing the fee in November of 2007. We're accumulating about $215,000 per month. 1.49 total, like I said, with an excess of 278. We have some significant upcoming expenses. Now, these expenses exclude folks who we have on the payroll for the stormwater, who are being paid out of that enterprise fund, and the operation and maintenance activities out of that fund. We've got some stormwater infrastructure repair obligations. We still owe the city $665,000. That's half of the overall debt that was incurred in developing the permit and the program. We have paid half of that back to the city's general fund. We just have the remaining half left. And we do have some stream improvement projects that we're looking at around $250,000. So our upcoming expenses, approximately $1.14 million, but we expect to be able to pay for those out of the as we increase our fund balance in the stormwater fee. One thing, kind of what we're doing right now, we did purchase a jetback truck. It was about $264,000. It has been going around cleaning the Sinking Creek storm drainage system. You may have seen that. We've segmented off, worked with our traffic department, and we're going through and systematically cleaning that storm drainage of debris and sediment and so forth. And we have taken out hundreds of cubic yards of material that have been clogging those storm drainage systems.
Where does that go?
We actually stockpile it on at our operation and maintenance yard on Church Street and let it kind of de-water, for lack of a better word, and then we have to take it to the landfill. So we truck it to the landfill. The Old Fort Stream Restoration Project, this is the stream improvement project that we're kind of working with right now. We're working with the Design Resources and Huddleston Steel. We're looking at this. There's a large basin to the south of Old Fort Parkway that discharges to this stream. There's a lot of debris. We're looking at putting a debris catchment system at the end of the pipe there coming under Old Fort. There's a lot of areas of the stream that need to be restored as far as the vegetative buffer. We also talked about several best management practices such as bioretention ponds, filtration trenches, those kind of BMPs to use to show the design community how they can retrofit those type of BMPs on their sites. So we're working with the Parks and Recreation Department on that, developing those plans. We also have a repair of different components, working with Chris and the engineering department, different areas of the drainage system that we know are in need of repair. We just have to wait for that fund balance to get to a point that we can do some of those projects.
This Spring Branch, where does it run through Old Fort?
This is Old Fort Park. You can see the tennis courts here,
Correct.
and it discharges into Lytle Creek, or sinking, no, that's Lytle Creek here. So this is the stream that comes through the,
So it runs kind of to the north, goes by the old pavilion, and crosses under the road and heads to Lytle Creek.
yes, sir.
Concrete swell thing.
And you're going to rehabilitate that,
We're going to restore the stream buffer.
the buffer.
And we're going to be we're working with Parks and Rec such that, there still is going to be a desire to have access to the stream. But what we would like to do is to just make those a couple of destination points, but restore the natural habitat. There's a lot of tree. I mean, you've got mowing down to the stream bank. It gets very wet and soggy. It's hard to maintain for Parks and Rec. And when you restore that riparian buffer, you get more wildlife. And you just get, we've talked about maybe possibly putting some educational kiosks out there so that folks can see some of the native plant material, native critters that like to live around that type stuff.
Awesome.
So,
Excuse me.
critters.
That's a scientific term.
That's, yeah.
Critters.
Excuse me. We are having some monitoring requirements that we expect to come up in our next permit cycle, so we would be funding those monitoring requirements. We're actually, right now, under our total maximum daily load requirement from TDEC, we're actually having to monitor for fecal coliforms in Sinking Creek, and so we've been doing that, funding that for the past year. We expect the monitoring requirements to just become much more rigorous as they typically do over time. Our post-construction requirements and credits policy, this is what Mr. McFarland referred to, that we initiated in October. It became, I guess, all projects after October of 2008 were subject to these requirements. We have a water quality protection requirement of basically capturing the 1.2-inch rain event over a 24-hour period. We've got a stream bank protection requirement that is a 3.1-inch rain event over 24 hours. I'd like to say that everything after October 2008 will receive a 40% credit. If you meet the criteria of the post-construction requirements, that is an automatic 40% credit on your stormwater fee. So if you had a $100 a month stormwater fee, you would only be paying $60 after October of 2008. Anything above and beyond that for flood control, which we're defining as greater than 6 inches, we look at greater than a 40% credit. Right now, MTSU is receiving about a 70% credit because they can contain the 100-year flood. Like I said earlier, we're collecting about $215,000 per month, and we're giving about $5,000 worth of credit. So it's just over 2% of what we collect. To summarize kind of the post-construction idea or concept, we do have low-impact design site practices where we try to keep, verticals better, clustering, maintain or try not to disturb the erodible soils on site. These are all called LID. You may have heard that. Minimizing the footprints of buildings. And these practices are more source reduction, how you can kind of prevent creating runoff from your site. And then we do have when you do generate the runoff, we kind of have the treatment trains, which we also have a manual for our all these BMPs and what they are capable of doing. Bioretention and rain gardens and parking areas, which is basically just recessing your landscaping and putting some plant material that don't mind wet feet. You've seen a lot of pervious parking around especially over at MTSU. They've been doing, I think, all of their parking stalls in porous concrete. We've actually mitigated some water quality buffer encroachments by asking the developer to put in some porous concrete so that that water would not get to the stream so quickly. And extended detention ponds, those are probably the best BMP wet ponds that maintain a minimum pool. So I just wanted to show those as devices that are currently kind of going in the system. We're available for questions if you have any.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gore? Then I appreciate this review. Thank you for bringing the information to us. Anyone, obviously, that has questions about this particular program can call the Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
We enjoy questions.
I know you do. That phone number is 890-0862.
Is it Darren's phone number you just gave out?
Cell number.
It could be.
What's your email, Darren?
It could be. There's 31,000 single-family residents.
Just
How many
everybody
was
call it Woods.
23,000 single-family residences and 5,800 multifamily, and all of them got his number. And if they don't, here's Mr. Kirchner, and they got his number.
BR 549.
All right, this time we'll consider recommendations of the Water and Sewer Board as to Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department's Consolidated Utility District Water Service boundary revisions along Dill Lane, Habitat for Humanity, 630 Dill Lane, Horncastle Drive, and SEC Incorporated and Eagle Summit Partners, 602 Dill Lane, PRD Development, and Water and Wastewater Treatment Chemicals bid for 2009 and 2010. Welcome, Mr. Kirchner.
Thank you. The Consolidated Utility District Board is recommended that, or requested that the Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department provide service to some Habitat of Humanity lots that you see on the exhibit that you have. I believe there's 3 lots they'd like to serve, and so we recommend that we accept that into our service area. On that same exhibit, you have north of that, there's about a 17-acre site that a 260-unit apartment complex is proposed for. After reviewing this in our water system, because of its higher density, it has a higher fire flow requirement, and it would be just very expensive to try to get the system over there that would allow that to have fire flow protection. Therefore, we're recommending that that area be served by CUD, so that area would, they're more available to serving it with their closer and have larger lines that they'll be able to maintain the pressure and flow that they need. At that same time, Larry McElroy called and indicated that on the exhibit on the back of that, the Horde property on 41, some years ago, they recommended that we temporarily serve that should it be developed. It's vacant right now, but if it should be developed, they want us to temporarily serve it. But Larry said with this change in these other 2 sites, he would add that on a permanent basis, that the Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department would serve that parcel. And so we recommend that these changes to the service area be made.
All right, any questions for Mr. Kirchner on this recommendation? If there are no questions, are you ready for a motion?
Second.
Move and second. Call the roll, please, Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye.
Next item is we open bids for our water treatment and wastewater treatment chemicals. And you see a summary of the bid tabulation that's been provided to you. Items 7 and 8, there were no bids. And item 11, We're recommending rejection of those bids. There was a discrepancy in the percent of chemical that was to be provided, so we're going to rebid that. But other than that, we would recommend the remaining that meet the low responsible bid for our chemicals at the plants. This would start with the July 1 with the fiscal year, except for the hyperion. It would start with July, or as soon as possible, so we can use it in our new plant configuration.
All right, any questions?
Not Mayor, I move we approve the recommendation.
All right, is there a
Second.
All right, you have a motion and a second. Any questions? Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirchner. And Mr. Kirchner's number is 893, no, 8900862. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Hear from Miss Linda Arms Gilbert, the Department of Educational Leadership at MTSU, with regards to the Franklin Heights Coalition. Welcome, Ms. Gilbert.
Thank you very much. Mayor and Council, we wanted to come here tonight to thank you and to thank your departments. About a year ago, we received a call to try to pull together some nonprofits and some governmental agencies to give support to the Franklin Heights Housing Project, which is, as you know, a housing project that's located on the corner of Bridge Avenue and Salem Highway. At that time, it was my pleasure to meet the young lady that I have with me tonight. Her name is Kathy Farrell. She heads up Project Pass at United Way, and she has been a tremendous leader in this coalition. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Kathy.
Welcome, Ms. Farrell.
Thank you very much. You know, my favorite quote in homage of basketball season, because I was raised a Hoosier, never mistake activity for achievement, UCLA coaching legend, John Wooden. And I think it's so applicable here because so many times people work with tunnel vision, are very busy, work very hard, but work alone. And I think this group, led by city entities, represents what working together with a collective servant's heart can do for a community. Led by Glenn Chrisman, he committed 2 police officers to the precinct over there. Nothing can be accomplished unless the folks that come into that community are safe and the people that reside there are safe. So we are so grateful to Glenn and to the folks that he's committed. Patsy Nolan with the Murfreesboro Housing Authority, because she's given us the space and the resources to be over there and to offer on-site programming. John Callow, I just left actually a community development block grant hearing, and the $10,000 that we received from them that we'll receive again this year, and you all approved that. You all were a part of that. We've been able to hire 2 folks that are actually housing residents to staff the Family Resource Center over there, to be on site 100% of the time, full time, so that the folks over there, when they come in for commodity distribution or they're in crisis mode, there is a person there to direct them to the services that they actually need. Lanny Goodwin with Murfreesboro Parks and Rec is always a tremendous support, whether he's there or sends staff there, and he's so open to any type of programming that brings that community together, and that's what it's about, bringing folks out of their homes and fostering those relationships there. The Murfreesboro City School System, specifically the Family Resource Center coordinator, who's Connie Middleton at Franklin Heights, and then to the 2 preschool teachers and their aides that are over there that are serving those children that so vitally need those resources in that community. And, you know, over the past year, we now, I think, are up to 36 individuals that form a coalition over there that donate their time and their services that represent government agencies, school systems, and nonprofits across the community, and we're seeing results. And the goal, I remember Chief Chrisman saying when we got into this, you know, Kathy, the goal is for people, for this to be a temporary solution, not a permanent solution, but if we're not over there connecting people with the resources that they so desperately need, it won't be a temporary solution, it will be more permanent. And so I think we've made great strides in the past year. There's a lot of work left to be done, but thank you for your support in this. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, and we certainly salute you for your continued efforts to make that federal housing project an outstanding place to live temporarily or as long as people are needed. So we certainly appreciate all the things and the activities that go on there. Many of us get to go several times a year. Not the least time to go, though, is maybe one of the best times is National Night Out in August, where we have an outstanding event in several of our community areas, and that's just one of them.
And we do salute the way that you tend to eat the hot dogs and the ice cream over there.
Mr. Young provided leadership there.
Yeah, I'm still having stomach pains over those.
And we appreciate and we know you, Ms. Gilbert, taught many years in the city schools and worked as our, I guess I'm trying to think of what the title was. You were curriculum director or whatever, so you did a great job with us there, and we congratulate you for what you've done for us, too. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. All right. And now to the beer permit applications. Ms. Wright.
Mayor, we have one tonight. It's a new restaurant at 1970 Medical Center Parkway, Suite R, and it's a new location. They've met all of our requirements.
All right, met all the requirements. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. You have a revised list of the statements to be considered for payment before you. Are there any questions? Are you ready for a motion on payment of the statements?
So moved. Second.
All right, motion and second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly. Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. At this time, we'll consider any other business from the council or from staff to come before the council. I have two appointments, or actually one reappointment to the Murfreesboro Housing Authority Board. Reappoint Mr. John Jones III and appoint James Calarakan to the St. Clair Senior Center Board.
Move we approve the mayor's recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. A motion second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Any other business to come before the council? Then you are adjourned.